Okay, so now we have a superstar, and she is the CEO CoverStar CEO for today, and she is Kelli N. Jones. She's program manager for Allos, is that how you pronounce it? Ventures. But more importantly, for our topic today, she is managing partner of 68 Capital, a pre-seed stage fund for Black, brown, women, LGBTQ plus entrepreneurs. For the last 4 years, Kelli has led the transformation of a more diverse tech ecosystem in Indiana through her organization, Be Nimble Foundation. Since starting Be Nimble, she has trained more than 30 Black and Latinx founders through her accelerator, has invested more than $40,000 in capital and $250,000 in startup resources. She's held roles at Techstars, Blavity, HipHopDX, and is on the board of Employ Indy, Indy Debate Commission, Indiana Technology and Innovation Association, and the Venture Club's NextGen group. She attended, and Christy Clement will be happy to hear this, she is a Hoosier. We're in Ohio State country here, but we accept Indiana University graduates. And she is a graduate of Tennessee State University, and therefore
TSU is much more important than the law school.
Right, TSU, right. And so I wore these colors just for TSU. So please, Kelli, if you want to share some opening remarks, it would be great, or anything you'd like to say before we kind of get into the meat of things.
Yeah, I mean, I think Eric, shared, most of my background. I had a very interesting journey getting into VC, and so I'm excited to talk a little bit more about that. But I really want this to be super conversational. Like, I want questions and stuff like that. I like to talk to people, so I'm glad to actually see faces as opposed to being like in a webinar, which is what I'm used to seeing. So, feel free to populate the chat. Feel free to ask me questions. I know Eric has some prompts for me. I like that. I don't mind that. And I also see some people that I know in here too. So thank you guys. I think I saw Chris in here and Alicia. So yeah, I'm excited to be here and excited to share a little bit more about me and what we do and why. So yeah, let's get started.
Oh, good. Right? Okay, so just tell us, how did you get started in venture capital? That's you don't see many people that look like you in VC, just to be honest. And so tell us a little bit about that journey, if you would.
Yeah, I'll tell the long story. So most of my career, well, I actually can't say most anymore because that was so long ago, but but I started after law school. I moved to New York, where I was working in the music industry. And so my career started with, I was doing experiential marketing. So I was working with Fortune 500 companies, startups, and doing like in-person activations at large music festivals. And so that's sort of where I got my start working for tech companies, sort of client facing. And then through that journey, ended up working a lot more for music technology companies. So I was working for brands like Serato and Akai and brands like that, and happened to be doing, I think I was doing a 2-year stint with Akai, and ended up, the year was a new Akai MPC was coming out. And Young Guru, who is Jay-Z's DJ and engineer, was sort of the brand ambassador behind that. And so we did the project, and actually Gerald, who's from Cincy, is, I don't know if he's in here, but I know he's back in Cincy. He was just here a couple days ago visiting me, but that was my partner. We worked together working with Young Guru, and he worked a lot on the music side, and I worked exclusively on the tech side. And so we started Air of the Engineer. We had the opportunity to build a really awesome project called Ear Sketch with National Science Foundation and Georgia Tech. We did tours with Grammy. He is one of the smartest people I know, and really understood this sort of semblance between like music, culture, and what we now know as tech. And at that point is where I got the bug. So I always, tip my hat to Gerald and Guru for kind of getting me in this space. And I think once I got that D&I and tech hat, that was around 2012, 2013, I've been on this ever since. And so continued to work with Guru for quite a long time, and then ended up moving to LA, where I took a job as director of sales and marketing for a venture-backed media company called HipHopDX. It was owned by, it was under the umbrella of Complex, which I think a lot of people know, Complex Network, but they actually just got bought by Warner. And then later went on to Blavity, and was a manager of sales and marketing there too. And I was there during the first year we launched Afrotech. And so at that point, I had been gone from being at home. I mean, I went to college out of town. I came back for law school, but just came for school and then left again. So I'd been gone a really long time, and I really wanted to get back home. I knew I always had every intention of coming back home. The purpose of me moving away was to just build my resume, build relationships, figure out what I wanted to be my passion, my lot in life, and then bring that back. And so I knew it was around D&I and tech specifically. And so around that time, this is maybe late 2016, is around the time where we had a lot of exits happen in Indiana. It was ExactTarget got sold to Salesforce, and Interactive Intelligence got sold to Genesis. And you started to see like billions of dollars essentially come into our city, which means when that happens, new startups pop up, new VC firms pop up, and majority of those are led by white people. And that was the case. And so it was a huge opportunity for me to kind of take advantage of the sweet spot that was happening at the time, be able to take the years and years of experience that I had, really just trying to get more Black people, people of color, into tech as a asset class, as a way to generational wealth, just because there's an opportunity to make a lot more money. There's a lot of opportunity to be a lot more successful, and there's just amazing things that come along with being an innovator. And so I started Be Nimble, actually ran it from LA for about 6 months before I finally moved back. And we've been sort of off to the races since then. And we started in two buckets. So one side was workforce development. So under Be Nimble, we train people both in technical and non-technical skills, and then get them jobs at startups. So we at 100% placement rate at this point, which means that we are directly diversifying our ecosystem by providing Black talent to startups that are generally white. The new version of that now, however, is because of the fund, because of our accelerators, we now can put our talent into companies that are owned by us. And that's something that I'm super excited about as a next step, as we sort of launch into the fund. The other side of our business is startup and entrepreneurship support. So we do that through a few different ways. So one is free workshop seminars that we hold pretty regularly. It's for anyone to come. And we do things like strategic partnerships, teaching you how to pitch, financial modeling, like anything that can kind of just help build your business toolkit. And then a little bit more in depth are accelerators. And so we've done generally one a year. We're pretty, we're called Be Nimble, but we are a pretty tight team. So we can't be as nimble as we want. And we also had we all had other jobs at the time. And so we ran one accelerator a year, which is where we put our founders through. And in the end, they pitch, and then we invest money in them. And so that's how we really started, just investing directly into founders. I had never had any intention of getting into venture. My goal was build founders, build great talent, put them in front of the people with the money, and then they get the money, right? Because I'm building them, and so they're going to be good. That didn't work. So, and there was a few things that I saw. One, a lot of the companies that we worked with, and I'll get into this more as I talk about like 68 and how we focus on 68, or what we think about when it comes to venture, especially, was that, I'm working with founders of color, specifically Black founders, that are solving problems that I get, but may not be solving problems that other people, i.e. investors, get. And it was very hard to try to sell people on an idea that they may not understand because of the cultural differences. So that was a huge gap that I saw. The other gap that I saw was really around more like business model. As I said, Indy is really enterprise, software, IT, that's their superpower. That's what they do well. That's where our success has been. And so with that, most of the talent and the expertise is in that space. However, my background is media and entertainment and consumer. And so I find companies that are definitely B2B SaaS, and those are super successful. I also find companies that aren't, and they also can be venture backable. But if no one is an expertise in that area, it's hard for people to choose to invest. And so I saw these few gaps, the biggest one obviously being around just diversity. At the time, we had maybe one or two Black startups that have ever had VC invested in them, right? So there was that obvious gap, right? But the real gap was like, there's an opportunity to have a different capital product in the market that can serve the needs of other types of entrepreneurs. So it serves multiple purposes. And so, with it didn't take me long. I was like, okay, I guess I got to start a fund now. And that was in 2019. And so, yeah, we started raising in late 2019. It was originally called Black Hatch Fund. So that was the original.
It was called what?
It was called Black Hatch Fund was the original name of the fund. So it was about hatching Black entrepreneurs. But as we went on, and I'll kind of get to the story of why it's 68 now. Started raising, like I said, late 2019, starting to kind of have conversations and really spending a lot of time with Black and Brown high net worth individuals that maybe never invested in venture before, to really help them understand what the potential opportunities were from an asset class perspective, right? Like, what does it look like when you invest in a fund that's ran by a Black woman that then invests in companies that are Black and Latinx, and then those companies exit, and then now their employees are well off, those founders are well off, the investors are well off, and all of a sudden you start seeing a new crop of people building things. And that's exactly what happened when Salesforce sold. What happens when it's a Black tech startup that sells is my thought. And so really spent a lot of time trying to figure out, how do we get more people of color interested in this? That's where I spent my time, because I wanted to, but also, was generally just trying to raise, and things were going really well. A lot of great response. People were excited about what it was that we were building. But I hit another roadblock, and that was, being an emerging manager. It's, when you get this deep into VC, you realize no matter how much passion you have and things you've built and companies you've helped, it always comes down to, like, what have you done? Have you been successful as an investor? Because all of it's based on returns. And so I didn't have that. I worked at Techstars, sure, that's a big deal. I had my own company, it's a great deal. But I didn't put actual equity capital in them. I put undiluted capital.
Sweat equity.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it was like sweat equity, but it was, essentially for the company, free money. It's not like I get 5% ownership for putting that money in. Right. But I knew that the companies I picked were good. That's my superpower, right? Is I pick good companies and I know what they need, and they end up being successful. So I, talked to my mentor. My mentor runs a fund of funds in Indiana called Next Level Funds, and he's like bringing me through this process, making me bump my head on purpose, but like then picking me up and saying, okay, now you got to do this. So I tell him, like, man, that thing you said at the beginning about track record happens. So what do I do now? And at the time I had left my job at Techstars, and, he said, well, there's all these firms that are looking at you now. They want to hire you. Like, I know you don't want a job. You don't want another job. You want to focus on this. Is there an opportunity to find, one of these VC partners that would be willing to sort of be your back advisor and help, like, sort of manage that back end support? And so that's where Allos comes into play. So while I am program manager for Allos, that takes about 20% of my time. That's really me helping support their portfolio. 80% of my time is spent on this fund, and we rebranded it, changed the name to 68 Capital, new colors, new vibes, new everything. But the great thing that we have is, what I think is really unique value for us is we have Be Nimble, this thing that I've built that's been this engine for just building really great companies. We now have this capital product where we'll be able to really invest real dollars in them. And then we have sort of the credibility of a firm that's just been super successful both in Ohio and in Indiana, backing up a Black girl from Indiana and really letting me tell my story the way I want to. And I think that's the way you use privilege in a way that's not predatory, right? It's not about like, we're going to start a diversity fund and look at our faces being diverse. It's how do we uplift the Black woman to do the work that we want to see done because we believe in it that much. And that's why I picked them, like they were willing to do that. And so that's how we got to where we are now. So, it's a $15 million fund, a small fund one. We invest in, what we call industry agnostic, tech and tech enabled, which I want to be really clear is not just tech. And I want to talk a lot about that today.
Yeah, please do emphasize that point, because a lot of people think it's just tech. It's got to be high tech, but you take a different approach. So if you could share that.
It's really, really, really important to me to make a distinction around this, because So how I explain venture capital, how I explain what's venture backable, how I explain tech are very different than I think a lot of people think about it. So I think about venture capital being about a business model. It's a business model type. It's not necessarily a tech only type. And when I say business model type, it means that you are building something, for a few reasons. One, you are serving a large market, hundreds of millions of dollars, large market. That's beauty, right? Beauty is $1 trillion brand, right? If you build a beauty brand, that's a large market. Almost anything can be a large market if you make it large enough. But what you're building is to serve a very large market. I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing is scale. It means you want to go really fast. So the purpose of venture is to put money into an organization that has high hopes for hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars, and they want to move as fast as possible. That's how I look at venture. To me, that's a business model. That's not just tech. Tech works because tech moves like that, right? It's easy to build something that's technical that you can put money in. We know we're solving this big problem because people need a more easy solution using technology. And so that, gets venture capital, right? But you also see venture capital happening in things like Amazon, right? It's tech, technically, it's a website, but it's a marketplace. It's e-commerce, right? It's buying things online and then it getting shipped to you. It's tech behind it, but it's serving a market that's not just tech. Or you see things like Away Luggage, right? It's a booming e-commerce brand, super influencer luggage, but it's backed by private equity dollars, right? And so when I think about how I want to invest in the impact that this has on the Black community, yes, will there be some tech things that we work on? Absolutely. I love tech. I'm a computer nerd. I'm going to invest in tech. I'm going to invest in software. I'm going to invest in apps, but I'm also going to invest in beauty products. I'm also going to invest in e-commerce brands. I'm also going to invest in, those are the things, because those are the things I love. Those are the things I like. I know the power of Black hair, right? I'm going to invest in Black hair care brands, right? If it makes sense. I'm going to invest in wellness, and whether that's, an online app or anything like that, I'm going to do that too. Like, we can build businesses that can solve problems in our areas, in our community that are in general just going to be tech, because everything in our world is tech enabled. You have to use the internet for almost everything. Everything has to sit on the internet. I mean, the only thing I can't really is anything that's considered a small business, right? Like a brick and mortar store, unless it's multiple stores, scalable stores. But again, it's all about, serve and the want to be, go really large and make a lot of money. And so part of our initiative with 68 specifically is, yes, we will invest in our software, our IT, our apps, our different things like that. But I'm also excited about approaching our small business community that's building, Black hair care products or face products or clothing brands and different things like that have the opportunity to grow and hit scale fast, and finding ways to help leverage them into retail or leverage them into like huge direct to consumer brands, so that they can hit, those really, really large markets. So that's what we're most excited about as part of our overall strategy.
Well, thank you for that that overview about it. So, can you describe what process you use in evaluating these companies and looking at these companies, so that with an eye towards, if there's an entrepreneur who's on this Zoom, or who may look at the Zoom, what do they need to prepare to be attractive to 68 Capital?
Absolutely. So it's a very long process to go through if you're starting from scratch, but I'll try to keep it as sort of simple as possible. So I think the first is, really looking at and solving a problem that needs to be solved. It's looking like, for me, I love anything that's disrupting a legacy market, something that maybe is not as tech enabled as it needs to be. It needs sort of infrastructure in front of it. I love anything that, I love when I get something I'm not thinking about, like solving a problem that I haven't even thought of. And I was like, that is a problem. I forgot about that. So things like that are really important. Team is really important. I think people can come up with ideas, but you have to have the right people behind it, driving it to make sure it makes sense. So I spend a lot of time just getting to know founders. It's the reason why I don't necessarily like doing meetings with a deck and a presentation. I like to just talk and hear you see the passion that you have for the product, or like tell a story or a narrative about it. So like really seeing someone that is just a subject matter expert on what they're building, that they're passionate about what it is that they're building, and that they're willing to do it for the long haul. Because this is not I'm gonna start this thing and that's it. I was just like, when we get into a relationship, when I invest in you, we're together for 5 to 10 years, and so we have to make sure we have that established. I think the other thing is, again, market size. Are you building something that, like, some things can be too niche, and some things can be heavily oversaturated, and it doesn't work. But like, is there this really kind of special space that you sit in that's a large market, but there's a problem that multiple people really need help with? Finding that is a very hard thing to do. It's called product market fit. And that's the longest process. And that's essentially what you are getting funding for, hopefully. It's also the stuff that people bootstrap through. It's building, like, going through all the research and the market research to see what people are looking for, what consumers are looking for. It's not just, I think this is important, people need this. It's really asking the question, do people really need this? And that is something, that's a process that you have to go through. That's why I say it takes long. But once you go through that process, the next step is, okay, so now you have all this data, you've done the research, what you want to build, why people want it, it's then putting it in a deck format, right? Tell me the problem, tell me this, like everything we just talked about, tell me the problem, the solution, your market, who are your competitors, make sure you understand what your competitors are and how you're creating a moat around yourself as compared to them. Business model, how are you making money? How do you plan to make money on it? And then understanding like what it is that you need to get started. And if I have those things, I can have a conversation. And I really actually have a conversation with everyone. So I love taking meetings and just talking to people and just hearing about what they're building, because I can always provide some value. So yeah, I mean, that's sort of it, but it does take some time to get there.
Do you have revenue minimums? Like if somebody has a great idea, will you talk to them, or do they have to at least have like incorporated and gotten investors on some level, or have some revenue, or what? How
Yeah.
pre-seed is pre-seed in your world?
No, so that's actually a great question. So technically pre-seed is actually pre-product. Could be pre-product, could be pre-revenue. I would expect that you've done the research though, right? Like that you've maybe built a small MVP, maybe you've had a couple of test customers that you're just doing it for free to see if they like it. But if it's an idea that's strong enough, like that's considered a pre-seed. I'll tell you, most of the companies that we're looking at, you got to remember, sign of the times. Like this is an arena where people of color specifically haven't been just getting a ton of investment. Most of the people that come to me have bootstrapped already. They've gotten themselves to a place of revenue because they've had to. I hope that in the future that doesn't have to be the case. But I think by nature, like I see a lot of companies that just are like, yeah, we just built it and just tried it out and seen if it worked and it made some money, and now we're thinking we should raise. And that's just where I see most founders, because the struggle, it's, I think it's really easy for our like white counterparts, can just say, got this idea, and they call granddad and get 15K and they can, spin something up. We don't have that luxury. So it's, we work, I worked through Build and Be Nimble, right? So like we put our money in it a little bit, see if we can try something out. Then we try and then like, oh shoot, it makes money, and then you keep going. And then it's like, okay, I want to go full time. I'm making some money, but I need some more money in order to like really build this thing out. And that's where I find most of our founders end up sitting. Mm-hmm. In the future, I hope that I don't have to, I hope I get to, find them in that idea phase and be able to like throw, 50K, 100K at them to just experiment. Like we don't get that luxury. And that's a luxury I want to be able to provide.
Mm-hmm. So what words of inspiration would you have for entrepreneurs that are out there that are, trying to make it and trying to perhaps gain the interest of 68 Capital?
For me, it's 1000% mindset, right? I think Um, we work really, really hard. We've had to work really, really hard. We've had to always be better than everybody else in order to get, 2 inches, in the game. And so I want to know that you really believe in you and believe in yourself, because if like, because I got to believe in you. And so if I don't have that from you, I need that. I think another thing is that, I always say, it's like, what, do it scared. I feel pretty fearless. Like, we can't limit ourselves to what it is that we think we need. We can have the power to do whatever it is we want. I like to compare it to the fact, like, especially when you're talking about tech, right? Like, when you're looking at Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, like, you see who the funniest people are on there. You see who the people are that are growing those platforms, right? And most of them look like us. When you see strong back lead in Netflix and all these things, like, you see all this data that they're getting on our initiatives and things that we're doing and seeing and reading and watching, right? We are over indexing in those spaces, but we don't own anything in those spaces. So how do we get ourselves sort of out of I'm just going to start this little thing and, I'm just doing it because I love it and I don't want to make money. You can do both. You can do something you love and you're allowed to make money too. And it's okay. Right. Like, I tell people that all the time. Like, I think that's just something we feel bad that we want to make money, and it's okay to want to do that. It's the only way we're going to get ahead. But don't we want to be able to own our own data? Like, people build entire marketing campaigns around us, but we don't have any real seats at the table when it comes to, like, how those dividends are spread out. And so when I think about people that I want to talk to and how do you get my attention, I want you to tell me you want to do something like crazy outlandish, because I'm going to listen, because that's what I did. I said I was going to raise a fund, and I mean, who does this? Like, I would have never done this had I known this would be what it would be like. But it feels good to know that this is the impact that we can have. Other than that, honestly, I talk to everybody, like I said. So, I mean, if you have an idea, if you just want some advice, whether you fit or don't fit, I mean, I'll tell you if you do or don't. I help everybody. I don't think we lose by spending 30 minutes talking, ever. And we owe that to each other. And I think I owe that to people too. So I talk to everybody.
That's a beautiful attitude, because most people of your stature and your connections and where you are now and where you're going would not do that. So thank you.
Yeah.
One of our good friends has a question. Willie Hill has a question.
Awesome.
What is your advice to those trying to build their MVP?
Love this question. So I would say, one, it depends on what it is. If it's an app, there are so many, like, really low code tools that you can use if you're trying to build an app just to test. And I can actually, I keep lists of these things, so I can drop a couple in the chat as a resource. But if you're trying to build an app, it's people come to you like, man, I want to build it, especially if you're non-technical. People, want to build an app, and you'll go to somebody that's maybe technical, and they'll say, oh, it's going to be $50,000, it's going to be $100,000. And it's really, that's how it does cost that much, it may be more. But there are tools similar to, like, how you use Wix or Squarespace, where you can drag and drop and build, low code apps and use that to test. I know people that have used, like made apps on those things and actually use them, like, they are in the app store chilling, right? And, like, people are downloading them, right? So, if it's an app, I would do that. If it's software, there's things that you can cobble together to make things, to test things out. So I think it would just depend on what the MVP is. Obviously, if it's something deeper, like machine learning tools, AI, like, you're just naturally going to have something a little deeper. But, if we're talking an app, or we're talking, like an online marketplace or something like that, there's so many, like, low code and not free, it is going to be something. But I mean, would you rather spend $80 a month for a few months, or do you want to, chuck up 50K and not even know if it's going to work? That's the choice I'd make. So yeah, I'll drop those in here.
We have, and people can add their questions to the chat. We have another one. This is from Ellen, and she says, how do you think about trying to maintain ownership of the original founders when you are taking equity? And then when the business is sold, how are you trying to keep it in the hands of people of color? And Ellen is venturing on a concept that relates to this question. So
again, I love this question too. So um, so here, and I'm gonna actually reread it because I want to make sure I address everything. Okay, so I'll address the first thing. How do you think about trying to maintain ownership of the original founder? So when I look at companies that we pick, and I don't think I mentioned this, when we look at companies that we are interested in investing in, it's really important to me how they're driving revenue. When you just generally look at the landscape of tech companies that are deemed uber successful, and have had tons of money invested in, IPO for billions of dollars, many of them have never been profitable a day in their life. Lyft is a great example of that.
mm-hmm.
Never profitable, right? So the companies that I look at, revenue model and pricing is my number one thing that I'm looking for. Like, the idea has to be great, but I need to know that the revenue has potential, that because I don't want my companies personally to have to ever raise past an A, because they've raised three rounds enough to get them to a place where they're profitable and they don't need it. I think a great example of this is Givelify, the startup I worked at before I went to Techstars. Black founder. He actually was one of those people that fell through the cracks. No VCs invested, right? One of the smartest people I know, technical founder. Ended up getting zero VC investment, right? Got a couple of angels, but he was making money already. He just needed it so he wanted to hire more people and add more tech. And so all he did was just scale up sales like crazy and use that to generate revenue, and then started adding people. It took a little bit longer, but he didn't need, he ended up having to bootstrap, but he didn't need to, because now it's the most successful Black tech startup in this state. I will tell you that. Right. And he's in churches all across the country, they're making money, but the revenue model alone made money. He just needed a little bit of a boost to get him to that place where he could be revenue positive. And that's how I see how our fund works, right? It's putting in at a pre-seed, hopefully being able to follow on a seed. Our relationship with Allos allows us to be able to invest a little bit more through them, because they have a bigger fund and they focus on Series A. So if they get to that round, my companies, when we look at their financial models, I can see they're profitable. If I just give them $500,000, they can get to X, right? So by, raise 3, do they need to do a B? No. What happens then is that they actually maintain more ownership, right? So that's how I look at the equity part. Instead of giving up, when you get to a Series J or whatever these people be doing, I've seen somebody raise a Series G, at that point, they only have 2% ownership. I mean, it might be worth billions of dollars, but would you rather be worth billions of dollars maintaining 60% of your ownership of your company versus being billions of dollars in IPOing and having this great product, never being profitable, and having 2% shares? I mean, I know what my choice is. The second part of that is I have no intention of ever allowing, I will never oust a founder. That's just something that I just do never feel, unless it's just something just super egregious. I will never allow an original founder to be ejected from a company because of the board. I will not allow that. I've seen that happen to a lot of people. I think it's messy. I think it's ridiculous. I think things can be fixed. But I also don't want to be a board member. And honestly, how early we're investing, our people don't even have boards made yet. But I don't want to be in a place where I'm determining the outcome of a company, although I know that, it's on me to do it. We will fix it unless they choose to leave, or unless, again, it's something egregious. It has to be bad. It has to be really bad. But I can't let that happen, because that's, again, important to me. Ownership is important to me. And then how, when the business is sold, are you trying to keep it in the hands of the people of color? So this is something that I think we have to get comfortable with. When you exit something, you can choose not to. You don't have to sell. And if you don't sell, you keep it. If you choose to sell, you're selling it to someone else. Now what generally happens is a company will sell and then that person will maintain, they'll stay on, maybe they'll stay on a few years. But I think most of the time, like imagine being in a company for 10 years. um, I imagine you might get tired, or you like want to maybe do something else. And like, I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to exit a company or sell it. The thing that you're after is the generational wealth that it provides. Like, selling your company to another entity, and maybe being able to go off and do some other things that you want, or living comfortably, or not doing anything at all. I think it's a luxury that we have never been able to have. So when I think about an exit, I think one, it's a choice. You can choose to just keep running and get what you need to get out of it. Or if you choose to do that, that's okay too. But one of my favorite outcomes of selling is selling a company, or exiting a company, is like what Dennis did, what Rich Dennis did with Shea Moisture, right? Like, what did he do? He went back and bought Essence back from from Time, and so it's Black owned again. Like that to me is so much more powerful. He stood up a fund for Black women. Like, that to me is what I would want my post, amazing company exit to look like. And I think that's okay. And he still has his hand in what Shea Moisture does too. But yeah, I think that has to be a choice. But I do think we have to get comfortable with the idea that selling a company isn't necessarily bad.
And so Willie has another question, and
Mhm.
people can put questions in the chat if they would like. You talked about business models. How do we help our younger businesses potentially recognize a model or a scale to build capacity in their model, in their
I
business model?
love this question. Um, this is part of our strategy. Again, it's a mindset shift. I think everybody wants to be rich. I imagine that, right? I think what we've seen historically within small businesses or micro enterprises is a slow build, right? You build slow, you build slow, you build slow. Um, how I look at it is one, and again, this is so piloty for me, so it's very new. So this might change, but what I look at is one, are they already doing well? There's a lot of small business owners I know, especially ones that sell products, that are doing pretty good and could probably get into retail, could probably, scale really large, have a unique enough product that it would brand well. But I think all of it is around like packaging and branding and vibe and, just like these little aesthetic things that you need to do. And then them are already maybe having some, like huge following, or people looking at them potentially for retail, or them being almost in retail conversations, or are they selling on Amazon? And those are things that I can nitpick with and say, okay, it seems like you've built this thing to a certain place. Like, you're still making your products in your home, or maybe you do have a warehouse now. What are some things, like what would it take to put some additional capital into you so that you can 10x this and do more and then get to retail? Like, that's going to be a super sweet spot for me. And that's how, in my mind, the model changes. So it's moving from sort of I don't want to say LLC model, because I would hope at that point you're probably C Corp, S Corp of some sort, especially if you're quite that large. But if you're not, then it would be first a business organization change, because in order to take outside like equity-based investment, you have to be a S Corp or C Corp, or C Corp, I think most times, because it's based on shares. So it would be a transition of how you're registered, so that you can have shares amount that can be split up. And then it would just be all like surrounding them with experts. What we're looking at right now on our advisory committee is adding like really, really deep CPG product experts, both R&D and go to market, because that is going to be really important for these brands that we'll be working with, that are, small, making stuff at home, and then scaling them into warehouse, and then into drop shipping, and then longer term retail. So that's how I'm going to try to approach it. Another thing that we're doing, actually, I can't talk about that, so never mind. I won't talk about that. But there is something that we're doing to sort of to disrupt the restaurant industry as well. So it's taking people like that too.
So, Cedric has a question about minimum investment, and so I want I think what Cedric means there is the minimum investment that you make, and not the minimum investment that you receive. at 68 Capital? I
Uh,
think that's what he's
what do you mean? Like minimum investment that I give to founders or to entrepreneurs? Or
Yes, I believe that's what he's asking.
okay, so our check sizes are 150 to 450. It just depends on where we are on the number and the size of the round. And then we do reserve follow-on. So the follow-on would be like going into a second round. So and really that's just to maintain whatever ownership percentage we go after. I think we average somewhere between 10 and 15%. And that usually is 450 to 750. And then we don't, so technically we don't invest past that. But we do have a network of people that do. So we'd be able to, if you need to get to an A or a B, we'd have people we can get you to.
Okay, so Cedric, if that didn't answer your question,
yeah,
something else in the chat. How
can
can
said investment that you solicit from investors? Okay, so yeah, that's it. He wants to know how much do I get from outside people into our fund? I think.
Okay, if you feel, yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, he just wrote it in the chat. I was just looking at it.
Oh, okay. Please go ahead.
So minimum for our fund is for individual, it's 100K. And institutional, so that's corporates, fund of funds, endowments, all that sort of thing, is $500,000.
Okay. So can you tell us how, like the business community in Cincinnati, how can we be helpful to 68 Capital, to Kelly Jones? How can we be helpful to you?
Awesome. Yeah, of course. So one, I actually didn't talk about geography. So we invest all around the Midwest. So I am Indiana based, but we invest right now, we're doing our concentric circle. So it'll be Indiana core, Ohio, Kentucky, Illinois, Michigan to start. And then sort of second wave, which is probably will be more in year 2, we'll start spreading out a little bit more. So our focus really is to find Black and Latinx business owners, founders, that are looking for outside investment. If you're currently operating as a small business or a micro enterprise, how are you looking to scale? And if you are interested in scaling specifically around CPG and things like that, I'm more than happy to look at it. I think the number one thing that I need the most help with is, one, being introduced to companies that we can work with. Again, Ohio is going to be a key market for us. Half of our team at Allos is here. So, we're going to be here doing stuff. And so I want to make sure that we're looking at as many companies as we possibly can that are here, both in Cincinnati and just across the entire state. And then on top of that too, anytime we have stuff going on, like I would love to share it with you guys, and, feel free to share it to your networks and share what we have going on. And then, if there's anyone that is interested in learning more about what we do in our fund and things like that, I'm more than happy to answer any questions. And I'll drop my email in the chat, because I told you I don't mind people calling me.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good.
So so always hit me up. But yeah, I mean, we'll be part of this ecosystem in some ways, even though I'm not physically there. I want our presence to be felt. So as much as we can connect with Black business owners, Latinx business owners in your area, we want to do that and help provide value. So,
so
helpful.
Yeah. So can you describe just the ideal opportunity for 68 Capital? What's your perfect opportunity that would just
perfect company?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I have an idea of what it would be, but I can give you a profile of like what I'd like it to be, like what I'd like it to be like, and I'd probably compare it to my favorite like Calendly. My favorite company is founded by Black founders. Givelify.
Calendly was founded by.
Yes, very much so.
I use it all the time.
He had the same issues. He had the same issues as the founder I was talking about earlier. Couldn't raise a dime. He didn't raise any money until he hit 30 million in revenue. It's sad. It's crazy. That's crazy to me. I don't get it. But like, could you imagine, like, what if you were early in Calendly? God, how well off would you be? But yeah, he had the same story. So yeah, Calendly, I love. Walker and Co. I love CPG brands. I just do. I love beauty brands. What other company do I like? There's a company in Chicago. Oh, he's gonna hear me shouting them out. It's called Oja Express.
Hmm.
It's like a Instacart for international grocery stores, which I
Oh,
love. Yeah, I like to cook. I'm not like international, but I like to cook, and I like making Jamaican food and Asian food. And like, going to international grocery stores is really hard and it's hard to find. And like, he has this really incredible platform that he's building to help like sort of Instacart it. And I think it's a huge opportunity. I love that company. But I love stuff like that, right?
mhm.
I'm also really into, lots of like health and wellness stuff, especially things geared towards people of color, whether that's, anxiety, mental health stuff, or if it's, things that, I think Black women especially are facing more than others, things
Is
around like,
Peak Mind one of your companies?
Peak Mind is not one of my companies, but Alicia and I talk very closely.
Well, it should be. She's
I've not
right
invested in
here.
her yet. I said yes. We haven't invested in her yet. But yes, Alicia and I are probably on conversation number, I don't know. We've known each other for a while. So,
Okay.
so yeah, no, she's very much in our pipeline. Trying to think what else. Yeah, I mean, there's tons that I like. But those are ones that, I think what I'm getting most excited about are just companies that are solving niche problems in our communities. I like companies that are, doing really well revenue wise. I like aging tech for some reason. I like elder tech. I like, because I think that's going to be a really sweet spot here soon. Future work I like a lot just because of my background in HR. And then I love anything media, entertainment focused. I just think there's still so many really great ideas there. And because of who we are as a culture, I don't think we have enough ownership in that space. And I want to see us have more. Sorry, that's a lot, but yeah.
Yeah, no.
Industry agnostic because I like so much stuff.
Yeah, no. That's perfect. And your approach in this industry, I don't know if people realize it, but it's unique. It's unique. So most
Yeah, I like to believe that I'm the anti-VC. I think that's because I don't have a traditional like road to VC background, right? Like,
Mhm.
I mean, I have, I do. I mean, I have a law degree, so yeah, I guess that's cool. But like, I didn't work at Google. You know what I mean? I'm not a, I'm not any of that. So I'm like, I like things that are like about the culture, things that I'm into. I like things that everybody else is into. So I want to see more stuff like that. I just want us to have more ownership in those spaces. So that's
Mhm.
what I look for.
Mm.
Is Alicia still in here, by the way?
Yes, she is.
Yay. Okay,
Yeah.
good. She didn't leave me.
Uh-huh.
Who
Yeah,
else is-
so I don't know if people have other questions. We're scheduled for an hour. I want to just say you have been absolutely gracious
I
with
hope so.
with your knowledge and your expertise, and you're just wonderful. You're a superstar already, and really you're gonna head to the moon
I hope.
and beyond. Yeah, I know. So we have one more question in the chat. Ms. Worsham had a question about an S and a C corp. Those are just tax
Yeah. Different.
designations.
Mm-hmm.
S is a flow through. C is shares of stock. And I'm not sure that I see any other questions. I'm sorry, but perhaps if you do have questions, Kelly has been kind enough to extend her email. It's in the chat, so you can hit her up and say, hey, this is my question.
Please do. Please do.
Yeah. So Kelly, did you have any closing comments or ideas or thoughts that you would like to share with our group?
Sure. So one, yeah, like Eric said, my email's open. Feel free to email me if you need anything. I'm also Kelli Nicole on everything. So it's Kelly with an I, Nicole with a K. And if you're interested in just hearing more about like the stuff that we do, we do webinars and all these different things. We have an e-newsletter that you can subscribe to on benimble.co.com. So I'll just drop that in here too. That's my organization. And if people are really interested in, well, it depends on what's happening with COVID-19, but we do throw one of the largest fundraisers in the state of Indiana. It's called Party Girl Ball. So if you're into like millennial fun events, please come. We do a whole week of events that raise money for all our programs. So would love to have people from Cincinnati slide through.
So is that like the Black Expo, the new Black Expo that Indy used to have, or something on top of that?
Oh yeah, we are definitely the new Black Expo. I'll tell you that.
Okay. That used to be fun back in the day.
It used to be, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Probably nobody on this Zoom remembers that, but anyway.
They're still doing stuff. Yeah, they still do summer celebration and all that. I think it's for me, like we're kind of like the new version of all that.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah, like it's really great. So yeah, if you go to benimble.co.com and subscribe, you can see all our programs. So if you're interested in being in our accelerators or anything like that, you can find information on that. But our e-newsletter goes out every Thursday. I don't think it's gone out yet today. And it just is packed full of just content about where money is, new companies, all things Black entrepreneurship. So it's a really great resource.
Oh, cool. That is wonderful.
Yeah.
That's really wonderful. And again, I just hope people realize just how unique you are in this space and just really how wonderful you are. I think Jordan has a couple of things that he wants to say, and then I'll close out the.
All right.
Please, Jordan.
Please don't mind the background noise behind me, guys. I know I'm typically in a quiet space, but I'm live on set with the 2020 Calibration recording. So we have Ed Sachs Thomas in the background. You guys don't have to pay for this today, okay? The music is free. I want you to be sure to take a look at the chat box. I sent each and every one of you a private message that includes a link to a survey. This is a great opportunity for us to get feedback from you to strengthen our programs and to tell Kelli how we can do this again, okay, better the next time. So please take a second to check that out. Please make sure that you're signed up for our programs coming up next week. We have a multitude of things happening, and along with our standard programming, we also have a digital boot camp happening for our calibration vendors, but it is open not only to our members and calibration vendors, but to the community. So that's taking the place of our tech foundations this month. So please check that out on our calendar. Please make sure that you're checking your spam folder if you're not getting our newsletter and you're signed up inside of our system. If you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. And you have my email. If you have any other questions about programs or activities that are coming up, please feel free to reach out to us or to correspond on our or on our website at african-americanchamber.com. Thank you, Eric. And
thank you, Jordan. One thing I want people to do is really put it in your Google search thing for Kelli. I'm telling you, she's already a superstar. She's going to blow up even more. And so you want to make sure that you're connected to her as an entrepreneur or as a business person, or if you're interested in this space at all. Follow up with her newsletter, and she put her email in the chat. So there are no excuses on your part because she opened the door. So you've got to walk in order to absorb that knowledge. Thank you all so much for being on the Zoom today. Thank you again to Kelli, and greatly appreciate each and every one of you. And be safe and be well. Thank you.